Thank you for subscribing to our channel. Today is Thursday, April 29, 2021. Al Jazeera report. Palestinian behind Mars drone says visiting home is no small step. Space engineer Elbasyouni was part of the NASA team that made history this month by launching an experimental helicopter from the surface of Mars. But he said an expedition to his hometown in the Gaza Strip, where posters celebrate his achievement, feels even farther away because of Israeli and Egyptian restrictions. When you deal with electrons and technology, you can calculate things and know their path, he told the Associated Press news agency in a video interview from his home in Los Angeles.
BBC report. Australia, alcohol megastore near dry Aboriginal communities scrapped. The Dan Murphy's store in Darwin would have stood close to 3 communities which banned selling and drinking alcohol: Bagot, Kulalik and Minmarama. The Northern Territory has long battled problems with alcohol abuse. A panel commissioned by Woolworths found the firm had not consulted communities fully. The scrapping of the store, which would have been one of the biggest in the country, marks the end of a lengthy dispute.
Deutsche Welle report. Africa urges act now to avert Indian COVID case spike. Health officials in Africa urged governments and the public on Thursday to take action in order to avoid a devastating public health crisis like the one unfolding in India. As India battles an explosive rise in new cases and deaths, while contending with oxygen and medicine shortages, experts fear that the fragile health systems in Africa could collapse should a similar surge occur. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the continent's disease control body, said it was watching in total disbelief at the crisis in India.
Fox report. Navalny looks gaunt in court after ending hunger strike. Despite looking like a skeletal version of his former self, Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny came out swinging in a court hearing Thursday. He appeared shaven-headed, via video link, from the penal colony where he is serving 2.5 years. His appeal in a libel case, something separate from what he is doing jail time for, was turned down. Navalny has been fined the equivalent of $11,500 for defaming a World War II veteran.
CNN report. Facebook lifts the lid on how it's making money from WhatsApp. Since Facebook paid a whopping $19 billion to buy WhatsApp in 2014, investors have wondered how it will cash in on the acquisition, especially after the company walked back a controversial plan to sell ads on the app. On Wednesday, the company finally provided some details on how it's using WhatsApp to drive ad sales on its other platforms: Facebook, FB, and Instagram. Businesses that use WhatsApp to communicate with customers and conduct transactions, a group considered key to the app's future, have since 2017 been able to purchase ads on Facebook and Instagram that include a button allowing users to switch to WhatsApp and initiate a conversation with that business.
CNN report. Top U.S. military intelligence official says Russian military poses an existential threat to the U.S. The top U.S. military intelligence official said during a congressional hearing on Thursday that the Russian military is an existential threat to the United States. The Russian military is an existential threat to the United States, Lt. Gen. Scott Berrier, director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, said during a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing about worldwide threats. Berrier said the country's military is being used to maintain influence over states, along its periphery, compete with U.S. global primacy and compel adversaries who challenge Russia's vital national interests.
Fox report. UNC holds black-only healing session after Chauvin verdict. The University of North Carolina, Asheville, is holding a number of black and minority student healing sessions and programs following ex-Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin's April 20 conviction. Chauvin, 45, was charged with second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter nearly a year after he kneeled on the neck of George Floyd, a black Minneapolis man, for 9 minutes.
Deutsche Welle report. Oktoberfest in the desert, Dubai eyes German festival. Festival goers looking to get their fix of pretzels, beer, dirndls and lederhosen may be turning at the United Arab Emirates instead of Germany this year. A version of Oktoberfest is being planned for Dubai this fall, German media reported on Thursday. The as-yet-to-be-confirmed event vows months of festivities that will take place at the same time the metropolis is set to host the World Expo, which was postponed by the coronavirus pandemic.
Al Jazeera report. Is Saudi Arabia going to rev up a homegrown EV maker? Saudi Arabia has hired advisors including Boston Consulting Group to explore establishing its own domestic electric car maker, according to people familiar with the matter. The project is linked to existing plans to build up automotive infrastructure in the country and boost local manufacturing, said the people, who asked not to be identified because the deliberations aren't public. A spokesperson for Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund said it is committed to stoking growth and diversifying the kingdom's oil-reliant economy while declining to comment on specific projects.
Deutsche Welle report. Coronavirus, how Europe plans to reopen. As coronavirus vaccinations begin to accelerate across Europe, governments are making plans to reopen businesses such as restaurants, movie theaters and sports venues. Here's a detailed look at the steps European countries are taking to return to normal. Germany has been struggling to contain a third wave of the virus, with the government having been criticized for not having a quick enough vaccine rollout.
CNN report. The UK has been extra frosty lately, thanks to historic dry weather. If the old adage, April showers bring May flowers, stands true, much of the UK will be in for a disappointment when the calendar turns to May 1st on Saturday. That's because it has been a month for the record books as the nation has already seen its frostiest April ever and is inching closer to what will likely be one of the driest Aprils on record. As of April 28, London had only recorded 0.28 inches, 7.
BBC report. Why the proposed U.S. ban on menthol cigarettes is controversial. Public health and civil rights groups have lobbied vigorously for the ban, citing the disproportionate harms of menthol cigarettes on Black Americans. But critics fear prohibition could give rise to a black market, and more fatal encounters with law enforcement. The proposed ban would affect more than a third of U.S. cigarette purchases. A final decision though will take months, and possibly years, to implement.
CNN report. Biden tells trans Americans he has their back as GOP governors sign more anti-trans bills. President Joe Biden pledged his support for transgender Americans during his address to a joint session of Congress on Wednesday, telling members of the community he's standing by them at a time when they face a barrage of attacks by GOP-led state legislatures. I also hope Congress will get to my desk the Equality Act to protect LGBTQ Americans. To all transgender Americans watching at home, especially young people, who are so brave, I want you to know your president has your back, Biden said during his address.
Al Jazeera report. Cuba could be closing in on COVID vaccine sovereignty. With 2 domestically produced COVID-19 vaccines in Stage 3 clinical trials, Cuba is racing towards potentially becoming the first country in Latin America to develop its own shot against the coronavirus. The island of 11 million people, which has been under a strict U.S. trade embargo for decades, is in process of developing 5 experimental shots, including Soberana 02 and Abdallah, which reached final stage trials last month.
Fox report. U.S. issues India travel advisory as COVID-19 crisis deepens. The U.S. told American citizens in India to leave the country immediately, as the COVID-19 crisis in the country deepens. The State Department issued a Level 4 travel advisory Wednesday after the department approved the voluntary departure of family members of government employees. A Level 4 advisory warns U.S. citizens do not travel to the country in question, usually due to life-threatening risks.
BBC report. German ex-footballer Christoph Metzelder guilty over child porn images. He admitted in a Dusseldorf court that he had sent such photos to 3 women who are also being investigated. I leave a wound that will never heal, the 40-year-old former defender said. He also apologized to the victims and said he would return all awards he had received for founding a charity fighting child poverty. I sent these pictures even though I know what unspeakable suffering towards kids in each of these files there is, Metzelder said in the courtroom on Thursday.
Fox report. Michigan Gov. Whitmer announces plan to tie coronavirus vaccination rate to reopening. Michigan Gov. Gretchen Whitmer announced a MIVACC to normal plan Thursday that ties the state's vaccination rates to its reopening plans. It comes as Michigan tries to tamp down one of the worst ongoing COVID-19 outbreaks in America, With a 7-day moving average of 340 new cases a day per 100,000 residents and 2.63 deaths a day per 100,000 residents. Under Whitmer's new plan, the state will set out on a path to fully reopen once it hits 4 benchmarks for the vaccination rate.
Thank you for watching 5 p.m. recap. To be notified, you can subscribe our channel and activate the bell.